My name is Zach. I'm 29 years old. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and work as a data analyst for a logistics company. I'm not rich, but I'm stable, reliable. I own a modest 2-bedroom condo in Ahwatukee, the kind of place where people walk their dogs in the evening and HOA fees are obnoxious but survivable. 3 years ago, I bought this place alone, timing the dip in the market just right. No family help, no co-signer, just me, a spreadsheet, and the best deal I could negotiate. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Back then, I thought life was starting to fall into place. I had Caroline. She was my fiancée. We'd been together for 4 years, engaged for just under 1. At first, she was sweet, light-hearted, funny in that chaotic, adorable way. She'd dance barefoot in the kitchen, binge Netflix with me until midnight, and get weirdly excited over Target sales and Taco Tuesdays. I thought we had real love. But love, it turns out, has a way of disguising dependence. And sometimes, you don't notice the rot until the floor caves in beneath you. When Caroline lost her job as a dental receptionist 8 months ago, I didn't flinch. I told her, "Don't worry. I've got us." Her credit was low, around 580, and she wasn't on the mortgage. But we'd been living together for 2 years already. She contributed what she could, maybe $300 a month from temp jobs when they showed up. I covered everything else: mortgage, utilities, groceries, car insurance, internet. That was the agreement. I thought we were a team. She started planning our wedding October. Scottsdale, overly expensive. But hey, it was her dream. I dropped $200 on the venue, $500 on photography, and $800 on catering deposits. And Caroline mostly made Pinterest boards and complained about my lack of vision. But I kept working 50, sometimes 60-hour weeks, because that's what men do when they love someone, right? Then Brianna showed up. Caroline's old college roommate, a walking red flag wrapped in MLM jargon and motivational quotes. She had 2 divorces before 33 failed businesses that were really pyramid schemes, and a studio apartment near ASU with a fold-out kitchen table she called a CEO desk. Through her, Caroline discovered Elevate Phoenix. At first, it was just brunches with high-vibration women at overpriced cafes. Then it became manifestation circles and breakthrough intensives led by Victoria, a self-proclaimed life coach who charged $2,000 for weekend seminars and drove a leased white Mercedes she couldn't afford to scratch. 2 months later, Caroline wasn't the same person. She stopped cooking, stopped watching our shows. She started calling pizza low vibrational. Started calling me low vibrational. "You're addicted to processed garbage," she'd say, wrinkling her nose as I pulled out frozen wings. "You're addicted to escapism," she said when I booted up my PS5. We stopped connecting, started colliding. Even talking to her became exhausting. Any time I brought up stress from work, she'd hit me with psychobabble sounds like "you're resisting abundance." Or worse, "that's your scarcity mindset talking." Then came the non-negotiables. She required Wednesdays and Saturdays uninterrupted for her expansion work. She'd leave the house at 6:00 sharp, dressed like a corporate VP, talking about energy alignment and divine feminine flow. Where was she really going? At the time, I honestly didn't know. And that made me feel like the crazy one. Like I was paranoid, jealous, controlling. She said I didn't support her growth. Said I was threatened by strong women stepping into their power. Meanwhile, I was paying for her empowerment journey with every cent I had. But it didn't stop there. She turned our living room into her headquarters. Vision boards, crystals, affirmation altars. Women I'd never met 5. Sometimes 8 at a time, flooding our apartment during the week for sisterhood circles. They rearranged my furniture, drank my coffee, ate my snacks. And when I protested, Caroline looked at me like I was the invader. This is sacred space, Zach. Your masculine energy is disrupting the healing flow. The women nodded like I was some caveman grunting in their temple. But it was my house. My recliner they moved, the one I spent 3 weeks researching and saved $800 to buy, tossed out like garbage. When I found it in the dumpster, I saw red. You threw away my chair, I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I released it back to the universe. She replied, dead serious. That chair was blocking your spiritual growth. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly. Like a switch flipping in the dark. She had crossed every line, and I had let her, but not anymore. I moved my gaming setup back out of the closet. Set it up in the kitchen if I had to. She called it retaliation energy. I called it reclaiming my space. Then one night, I came home early. Victoria was in my dining room, coaching 3 women on upgrading their relationships and financial independence, each one paying $300 for this workshop. Caroline was her assistant, now unpaid, of course, handling payments, setting up chairs, smiling like she was part of something greater. I grabbed a drink from the fridge. Caroline followed me. Maybe you could use the bedroom for a while. We're doing deep shadow work out here. Maybe they could use literally anywhere else. The final straw wasn't the money. It wasn't even the lies or the linen curtains or the lectures about chakras. It was the night I heard her in the bathroom at 11:15 p.m., laughing in a voice I hadn't heard in months, warm, flirty, familiar. She came out, phone still in hand. I asked who she was talking to. She said Rachel. Rachel sounded a lot like a dude. And that's when I started watching. Started checking our joint accounts. Started checking her phone habits. And when the universe finally revealed the truth, let's just say, it didn't come in a thunderclap. It came in a quiet ding, a Bumble notification, a message, hey, gorgeous, free tomorrow night. Her phone was face up on the counter. She was at a transformation workshop, and I was staring at her open dating profile, wearing clothes I paid for. In the bedroom I furnished, while still wearing the $3,800 engagement ring I bought after 3 months of overtime. And that was just the beginning. Because what I found next changed everything. I stared at her Bumble profile for a long time. My fiancée wearing the silver wrap dress I bought her for our anniversary, posing in the mirror of our bedroom. Describing herself as a conscious entrepreneur seeking aligned masculine energy. I scrolled. There were multiple guys in her inbox. Tyler, Jake, some guy with a man bun and a hiking backpack. One of them had messaged, "You free Wednesday?" And she'd replied, "Perfect. He thinks I'm at a manifestation workshop. LOL." A text punched the breath out of my chest. Wednesday, her sacred growth night. While I stayed home washing the dishes and staring at overdue wedding invoices, she was out playing spiritual dress-up while sampling backup boyfriends. It wasn't just cheating. It was planning an escape while still eating my food, using my Wi-Fi, and humming around the house like I was the burden. And here's the kicker. One of those guys, Tyler, turned out he used to work 2 cubicles over from my buddy Chris. Yeah, Small world. A few days after I saw the Bumble messages, I met Chris for lunch. Casual. Chicken Caesar wrap, iced tea, nothing heavy. He brought up Tyler. Said, "Hey, this might sound weird, but is Caroline on Bumble?" I didn't even flinch. He continued. Tyler said he matched with a woman named Caroline a few weeks ago. Thought she looked familiar, then realized she lived in Ahwatukee. Said she mentioned she was technically living with someone, but the relationship was basically over. Chris looked apologetic, but all I felt was confirmation. That night, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by crystals I didn't believe in and linen curtains that cost more than my car insurance, and I opened our joint checking account. I should have done it months ago. Caroline had burned through almost $3,000, $800 to Victoria's Breakthrough Intensive, $1 $200 for private one-on-one mentoring, $600 for strategic networking events that surprise always required new dresses and high heels, another $200 for some ridiculous divine feminine mastermind. Our entire wedding fund, gone. And when I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. "That's not spending," she said. "It's investing in our future empire." Empire? What empire? "You wouldn't understand," she said. "You have an employee mindset. Some people build legacies, others clock in and rot." Then she told me she wouldn't be sending her usual $300 toward rent this month. I need to preserve my financial energy for aligned opportunities. I almost laughed. But what came out was something closer to silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy in your bones. The kind of silence that builds something inside you. Something cold. Something surgical. And so, I stopped reacting. I started planning. Because the truth was, I'd let her believe she had power here. But this wasn't her apartment. She wasn't on the mortgage. She paid maybe 10% of the monthly expenses when she felt like it. Legally, she was just a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. So I called my brother Danny. He's 34, owns an electrical contracting company, divorced 3 years ago, and has absolutely zero tolerance for relationship drama. "She's cheating," I told him. "I have the proof. I've seen the messages. She's been dating guys for months behind my back and spending my money to do it." He didn't even pause. "What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath. Scorched earth. "Good," he said. "What do you need from me?" "Legal backup, witness support, and someone to stop me from letting her talk her way back in." Danny chuckled. "Say the word, I'll be there." Next up was Steve, my lawyer. He handled my condo purchase and my business contracts. I explained everything. "She's not on the lease or mortgage. What are my options?" He said, "Simple. Give her a 30-day written notice. You're not married. No tenancy agreement. As long as you follow Arizona housing law, she's just a guest who can legally be removed." So I started building the file. Wedding vendors canceled. Venue contacted. Deposits partially refunded. Joint subscriptions deleted. Shared credit card closed. Funds transferred out of the joint account. I made copies of everything: bank statements, texts, workshop invoices, Bumble screenshots, all in a manila envelope, labeled and time-stamped. Caroline had no idea what was brewing. She was too busy glowing from her alignment sessions and steaming broccoli while lecturing me about detoxing my masculine scarcity aura. And so I played along, smiled, nodded, watched, waited. The night before the strike, Danny came over. We ordered Thai takeout and sat on the floor like generals planning a war. "You good with this?" he asked, holding the envelope in his hand. "She chose this," I said. She started treating me like a background character in her fairy tale. "I'm just giving her the ending she earned." Danny nodded. "Then let's make it count." And we did. Thursday morning, I walked into the bank and scrubbed her from every financial tie. Watching her name disappear from my accounts felt like finally exhaling after months underwater. Friday, I signed the formal eviction paperwork, dropped it in the envelope with the rest. Everything was ready. And Saturday? Well, Saturday was her divine partnership manifestation night. She took her usual hour-long shower, blow-dried her hair, applied full makeup, stepped into a tight green dress I'd never seen before. Apparently, enlightenment comes with contouring and cleavage. As she walked out the door, she smiled at me absently, like I was a doorman. "We're doing advanced curriculum tonight," she said. "Partnership alignment work. Probably won't be back until late." I looked up from my laptop. "Sounds powerful." She nodded, pleased I was finally getting it. She had no clue that when she came back, her entire transformation journey was about to transform her. Because when the key turned in the lock that night, and I handed her the envelope with her name on it, she didn't realize the crystals wouldn't save her. She walked in at 11:20 p.m., hair slightly tousled, perfume still lingering like expensive apology. Her makeup had been touched up, smudged eyeliner, softened and reset, gloss reapplied like a second act. She looked satisfied. That was the thing. She didn't walk in like someone returning from a spiritual circle. She walked in like someone who just closed a deal with champagne and dessert. She didn't notice the envelope on the coffee table at first. She was too busy checking her phone. I watched her from the hallway. No words, no accusation, just a long breath through my nose. Then I stepped into the living room. "How was the manifestation session?" I asked evenly. She blinked. "Surprised." "Incredible," she said, already slipping out of her heels. "Victoria says I'm finally ready for the advanced curriculum. I've never felt more clear about what I deserve in partnerships, like what energy has been holding me back from my highest good." I nodded. "That's good, because clarity's important. When things change." Then I handed her the envelope. Legal letterhead, proper formatting, every line double-checked by my lawyer. I'd gone over it 4 times just that morning before transferring her last $600 purchase out of our wedding fund. She took it in her hands, frowning slightly, probably expecting some financial printout I wanted to argue over. But as her eyes moved down the page, the smirk faded. First came confusion, then concern, then panic. "Zach, what the hell is this supposed to be?" 30-day notice, legal and binding," I said calmly. "You have exactly 1 month to find alternate living arrangements." She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "This is completely insane. You can't just kick me out of our home." I raised my eyebrows. "Our home. My name's on the mortgage." "It's not." I cut her off. "You've never been on the mortgage, or the deed, or the lease. You've never paid more than $300 a month when you felt like it. You're legally a guest, and your stay is over." Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Just a small exhale, like someone realizing they'd wandered into traffic. "But we're engaged." "Not anymore. Wedding's canceled. All the vendors have been notified, and I'll be needing my grandmother's ring back." She instinctively covered her left hand, like I was going to rip it off her finger. "Zach, please," she said. voice softening into the old Caroline, the version I used to wake up smiling next to. "We need to talk about this." "The ring," I said again, quietly. She slid it off slowly, like peeling off a layer of identity. $3,800 of diamond and platinum sat in my palm like vindication forged in stone. "You can't do this to me," she whispered. "I've invested 4 years of my life into this relationship. And I've invested nearly $60,000 in cash, time, and energy keeping this relationship alive, while you spent your Wednesdays getting dressed up for other men and your Saturdays pretending to be a self-help prophet's assistant." Then I looked her in the eye and added, "This isn't about your growth. It's about Tyler from Bumble, and Jake from Hinge, and every other man you've been texting while calling me emotionally limiting." Her face turned a color I hadn't seen before, not red, not white, just drained. The mask of spiritual superiority cracked. For a moment, the real Caroline appeared. No crystals, no affirmations, no filters. Just lost. "I can explain." "There's no need." I cut in. "Your screenshots explained it all. Dinner plans, late-night calls, the lingerie I didn't buy still hanging on the bathroom door. And don't act like this was just emotional. I know where you were tonight." Her voice was barely audible. "Please, Zach, don't do this." I was confused. Victoria made it all seem so clear. But I got swept up, and just like that, she shifted the blame. I almost admired the pivot, but I didn't buy it. "You weren't confused when you posted thirst traps in our bedroom," I said. "You weren't confused when you told strangers you were technically living with someone. You were just calculating." And then the real storm hit. Monday morning, 10:01 a.m., multiple car doors slammed outside. I looked through the blinds. Victoria's leased white Mercedes, Brianna's dented Honda Civic, and a third car I didn't recognize. They came in like a squadron, heels clicking, eyebrows arched, clipboards in hand. I didn't even have time to lock the door. Caroline used her key. They pushed into the living room like they owned the place. "We need to address this situation immediately," Victoria announced, settling into my leather recliner like it was her conference chair. The same recliner they'd once moved to make room for their vision boards. "Zach," she said with professional calm, "Caroline has established legal rights here. What you're doing constitutes housing discrimination and financial coercion. We're here as advocates for her protection." Danny, who had been calmly sipping coffee in the kitchen, stepped out like he'd been waiting for this exact performance. "Oh, perfect." He grinned. The empowerment squad showed up right on cue. Brianna tried to launch into some fiery speech. "You can't just discard her like garbage because she's outgrown your insecurities." Danny snorted. "Outgrown what? Rent, personal hygiene, financial responsibility. This conversation is between us and Zach," Victoria snapped. "Actually," Danny replied, "this is between Zach and his non-rent-paying house guest. The rest of you are trespassing." And then I dropped the bomb. The folder I'd been preparing since Thursday. Research, records, bank statements, legal filings, social media screenshots. Victoria's face didn't even twitch at first. "Victoria Chen," I said, spreading the documents across the coffee table like cards in a showdown. Also known as Victorian Win when you need it to sound wealthier. I tapped the highlighted line. Filed, Chapter 7, Bankruptcy. $14,000 about 15 months ago. Owes over $80,000 in unpaid debts. Has 3 judgments pending collection. And works full-time at a medical billing company. which seems ironic considering the personal healing you charge $2,000 for. Danny let out a low whistle. And that's just the start, I said, flipping to the next page. Your LLC not registered. Your coaching certifications fake. You've got 2 fraud investigations pending in Tucson and a cease and desist from your former partner in Nevada. Victoria's polished demeanor cracked. Brianna started shifting nervously in her chair. And Brianna, I said, turning the folder one more time, you might want to explain to Caroline why Tyler got screenshots of his own Bumble profile matched with her photos. Or why you've been arranging group dates behind her back using her images. Caroline whipped her head toward Brianna like she'd been slapped. You did what? Brianna stammered. It was just a joke. No, I cut her off. It was a setup. The entire room went still. The sisterhood had imploded. But this wasn't the end. Because what I revealed next would bring down their entire operation. The silence after that bombshell was almost holy. You could hear the central AC kick on, the hum of my fridge, and the quiet static of Caroline's illusion unraveling in real time. Brianna sat frozen on the couch, face bright red, mouth slightly open like she was still buffering. Caroline slowly turned toward her, voice shaking. You used my pictures to set up group hookups. You told me I was sabotaging myself when it was you behind my profile. Brianna flailed. It wasn't like that. It's exactly like that. I cut in, sliding a printed screenshot across the coffee table. Tyler sent it to my coworker. Same photos Caroline had on her Bumble, except the conversations weren't hers. You were using her accounts. Brianna, catfishing, setting up situations, piggybacking off Caroline's matches. Danny let out a long, low whistle. And people say men are the problem. Caroline looked like she'd just watched her house burn down, except she hadn't paid for the insurance. But I wasn't done. I turned to Jasmine, the third woman who had marched into my home like it was her divine mission. Jasmine, I said calmly, I loved your LinkedIn profile. Very polished. Strategic content consultant and social media mindset architect. She nodded, trying to play neutral. Except, I added, you've been collecting unemployment since May. Fired from your last job for, let's see, embezzling funds from a wellness retreat in Nevada. And yet, you're coaching other women on abundance. She stood up immediately, phone already in hand, heading for the door like someone escaping a live grenade. Caroline looked after her, speechless. Jasmine didn't even say goodbye. I turned back to Victoria. Her polished expression had hardened into something cold. But she still hadn't left. Let's talk about Elevate Phoenix, I said, spreading out the final page of the folder. Unregistered business entity. Filed under a fake coaching license number. No official LLC record. Multiple FTC complaints, 7, to be exact. 2 active fraud investigations in Tucson. And this, I tapped the top line, is a cease and desist from your actual former business partner. Filed last year in Clark County, Nevada. I leaned forward. You didn't just start a sisterhood, Victoria. You built a soft cult around vulnerable women who were going through breakups, layoffs, and life confusion. You isolated them, filled their heads with jargon, then drained them financially while painting the stable people in their lives as threats. Victoria stood slowly. I won't dignify that with a response. That's fine, I said. But the IRS might. So will the Arizona Attorney General's office, because I forwarded this folder to both this morning, along with screenshots, victim statements, and financial records from Caroline's bank account. Victoria's mouth twitched, just once. Then she grabbed her purse and turned to leave. Caroline looked up. Wait, you're not even going to deny it. Victoria didn't answer. She walked out with a grace that almost fooled you into thinking she was still in control. Almost. That left Caroline and Brianna. Brianna, shaky and pale, finally mumbled something about being manipulated too, then rushed out the door without another word. And then it was just us. Me, Caroline, and 4 years of everything we were, or thought we were. She stood in the center of the living room, looking around like she was seeing it for the first time. The apartment was no longer hers. No more linen curtains, no more borrowed power, no more altar of crystals she never believed in. You planned this, she said quietly. I nodded. The moment you threw out my chair. She looked down. I didn't know. About all that. About Victoria, about Brianna, I swear. I let that hang in the air for a beat. I believe you didn't know everything. I said, but you did know you were cheating. You knew you were lying. You knew you were spending my money without asking. And you chose to treat me like dead weight while I was funding your fantasy. Her eyes welled with tears. Real ones. For the first time in months, there were no catchphrases, no affirmations, no vibrations, just a woman with mascara running and nowhere to go. Zach, I messed up. I didn't know who I was anymore. And Victoria made it all sound so empowering. I thought I was rising. But I lost myself. I nodded again. Calm, empathetic, but unmoved. You didn't just lose yourself, I said. You sold yourself. For influence. For image. For control. She looked at me like she wanted to fall into my arms. Like she expected me to say it's okay. Like she thought there was still a sliver of hope I'd play the forgiving hero in her redemption arc. But I wasn't her story anymore. You've got 28 days, I said flatly. I'd use them wisely. She sniffed. Where am I supposed to go? Try the sisterhood. I said, oh, wait, never mind. And with that, I walked past her, into the kitchen, and shut the door behind me. 30 seconds later, I heard the front door open, then close, and I stood in silence, surrounded by the wreckage of a life I'd built with someone who never planned to stay. Danny walked in, holding 2 beers, one for each of us. Dude, he said, cracking one open. That was the most beautiful demolition I've ever witnessed. I smiled, and I felt it deep in my chest. Relief, clarity, stillness. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But little did I know, the story wasn't over. Because 3 weeks later, she came back. It had been 3 quiet weeks. No pastel affirmations. No ring of the front door opening late at night. No Victoria, no incense. No linen intention curtains. Just peace. I'd cleaned the apartment top to bottom, donated what was salvageable, trashed what wasn't. My PS5 was back in its rightful place, flanked by an ultra-wide curved monitor and mechanical keyboard that clicked like a symphony of precision. The recliner replaced, upgraded, actually. Real leather, adjustable lumbar support, a throne. Danny helped me bolt it to the floor as a joke. You try to move this chair again, he said. You better have a forklift and a lawyer. We laughed. For the first time in months, I actually meant it. With the wedding canceled, the shared accounts gone, and the social fallout contained, I could finally breathe. And that's when the voicemail started. First one was short. Hey, Zach. It's Caroline. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Then another. Things with Victoria. They weren't what I thought. feel really stupid. I thought she believed in me. In us. Then one more. I'm not trying to get back together. I swear. I don't have anywhere to stay. I lost my job. The motel I was in kicked me out yesterday. I've been sleeping in my car. Click. I didn't respond. And then she showed up. Tuesday night, 8:04 p.m. Doorbell rang twice, then again. I glanced at the security feed. It was her. She looked like life had chewed her up and spit her out somewhere behind a Walmart dumpster. Hair stringy and unwashed. Hoodie zipped over a wrinkled dress. Eyes swollen. Her suitcase sat behind her, barely zipped. I let her ring it 5 more times before opening the door. "Zach," she whispered. "Please." I didn't say anything, just stared. She exhaled hard, like she'd been holding it in for hours. I'm not here to argue. I know I don't deserve anything. But I'm desperate. I've been sleeping in my car. Victoria's gone. My parents won't answer my calls. I have nowhere left. My hands stayed at my sides. I kept my posture still neutral. Not angry. Just grounded. "There's a shelter on 5th Street near downtown," I said. "They serve dinner at 6. She blinked like she hadn't heard me. "Zach, please. Just the couch. Just for a few nights. I swear I'll be gone before the weekend. I'll pay you back. I'll fix this." I didn't flinch. "You spent months telling me I was the problem. You used my money to fund your transformation, your empowerment. You lied. You cheated. You let someone catfish using your identity and never stopped her." Tears spilled down her face. I know. And I hate myself for it. But I swear I've changed. I almost laughed. "No, Caroline, you're not changed. You're exposed. And now that the empire you tried to build on my back has crumbled, you suddenly remember how to be humble." She sniffled hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "I loved you." "No," I said softly. "You loved the security, the stability. You loved being rescued without ever saying thank you. You never loved me. You loved the version of you that was possible when I paid for everything." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. And for the first time, I saw it. The realization, the one she'd been outrunning, that no one was coming to fix this. That the empowerment fantasy wasn't scalable when the money dried up. "Zach, please. I'm literally begging. I have nothing. I'll take the floor, the garage, anywhere." I stepped back. "Actually," I said, "there is one thing you can take." I reached behind the door and handed her a plain manila envelope. Lighter than the last one. Smaller. Personal. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single handwritten letter. She looked up, confused. "I wrote it the night you left. Didn't send it. Didn't need to. But now seems like the right time." She unfolded the page. Her eyes scanned it in silence. I could see the moment she hit the paragraph I knew would land hardest. The one where I wrote, "You once said I was holding you back from your potential, that I didn't understand your growth. But the truth is, I was never the one anchoring you. You just didn't want to face that you'd rather skip the work and sell the dream. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a sponsor." She stopped reading, hands trembling, tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered. was wrong. I was selfish. I thought I was becoming this powerful version of myself. But I was just scared. And I took it out on you. I nodded. I believe you're sorry. But that doesn't mean you get to come back. She sobbed now, openly. And for a second, part of me wanted to reach out, to say it was okay, to help. But I didn't. Because if I did, I'd be undoing everything I fought to rebuild. You don't heal by reopening wounds for the people who cut you. You need to walk away now, I said quietly. And this time, you don't get to slam the door. You walk. You don't look back. You fix your life on your dime. With your choices. She stood there for a few more seconds. Then, slowly, she turned. I watched her drag that suitcase back down the driveway. Mascara streaked, hoodie limp around her shoulders. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing for her. Not hate, not love, just distance. I closed the door, locked it, and smiled. But the real vindication, it wasn't just watching her walk away. It was what happened next. Because Caroline wasn't the only one about to face consequences. 3 weeks after the feminist exodus, my life was unrecognizable in the best way possible. The energy in my apartment shifted entirely. Not in the way Caroline meant when she said my recliner blocked abundance, but in the real way where peace was no longer a negotiation. I had my rhythm back. Morning routines, work focus, spontaneous trips to Fry's without being lectured about the frequency of processed food, sports on TV, actual laughter with friends, weekend hikes instead of vision boards. Even the air felt cleaner. The gaming setup fully upgraded. Ultra-wide curved monitor. RGB lights synced to gameplay. High-end mechanical keyboard. My new throne of solitude anchored in reality. And my career took off like it had been waiting for me to cut the dead weight. All those late nights she mocked, "You're addicted to hustle culture," had not gone unnoticed. 2 weeks after Caroline left, I was promoted to senior analyst, $12,000 salary bump. Better benefits. Stock options, my manager said. You've been carrying more than your share for a while now. Time we made that official. I just smiled. Because deep down, I knew what I'd really been carrying. Meanwhile, the consequences I didn't even have to orchestrate began landing fast. Danny's girlfriend, Jill, is a hairstylist. She hears everything. One Saturday morning over brunch, Jill slid into our booth at the Breakfast Club, grinning like she'd won the gossip lottery. You'll never guess who's crashing at her second ex-husband's place again, Brianna, I asked. Jill raised her mimosa. Bingo. Apparently the empowerment cycle reset. Turns out, Brianna's third divorce imploded after her husband found Caroline's dating profiles on her phone, plus screenshots of the catfishing scheme she ran using Caroline's identity. Group meetups. Threesome arrangements. You name it. When Caroline figured it out, she tried to call Brianna out. But Brianna had already beat her to the victim narrative, spinning herself as manipulated by Victoria. No honor among faux goddesses. And Victoria. Oh, she got the karma truck in full reverse. Danny's buddy Ryan works compliance at a mid-tier finance firm. He texted Danny one night around 9:30. Hey, that life coach you exposed, she's officially under federal investigation now. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. Unlicensed investment solicitation. She's going down. Turns out Victoria skipped out on rent at her luxury complex. Her leased white Mercedes repossessed in the Trader Joe's parking lot while she was buying coconut yogurt and Palo Santo. Even better, Her coaching business had never reported a dime in income to the IRS, but she had collected over $50,000 from vulnerable women across the Southwest, none of it documented. Most of it gone. When I heard that, I actually laughed out loud. The woman who called me a low-frequency masculine archetype was now Googling bankruptcy lawyers on public Wi-Fi. But the one that hit hardest? Caroline. I hadn't heard from her directly since the night she left. But word trickled in through mutual friends and, well, the internet. She'd spent a week bouncing between couches before running out of options. Parents finally caved. Flew her home to Ohio. According to Chris, yes. The same Chris whose coworker first spotted her Bumble profile. She's working retail at Target now. Folding towels in red polos. Living with her parents. Posting cryptic Instagram stories about men who can't handle strong women reclaiming their worth. No accountability. Just more victimhood. Rebranded. I never replied. Never reached out. Because closure doesn't come from apologies or explanations. It comes from clarity. And I was crystal clear now I hadn't been loved. I'd been used. And when I stopped subsidizing someone's fantasy, they crumbled because they never learned how to build on their own. But the real cherry on top, that came Tuesday evening. Doorbell rang again. I checked the feed. It wasn't Caroline. It was a certified courier documents from a class action filing. Apparently, several former clients of Elevate Phoenix were banding together, suing Victoria for fraud, emotional distress, and restitution. Inside the envelope was a notarized statement they wanted me to sign as a witness. Why? Because I was the one who kept receipts. The one who documented everything. The one who stood up when everyone else was too busy manifesting escape plans. They called me Patient Zero. I signed without hesitation. And as I sealed the envelope and handed it back to the courier, I realized something. I hadn't just taken back my peace. I'd helped dismantle a predatory movement masquerading as empowerment. A system built on false promises, fake credentials, and emotionally vulnerable women. Caroline had called me toxic, but it wasn't toxicity she ran from. It was accountability. And now she couldn't hide behind affirmations or sound baths. Because the universe didn't hand her consequences. She built them herself. And me, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. With money in the bank, clarity in my mind, and no one draining me with their fake healing vocabulary. But there was still one final twist. Because a few days later, I got one last message from someone I never expected. It started with a ping. Tuesday night. I was halfway through loading a co-op match. Headset on, cold beer sweating on the counter. Notification: one new message request. From a name I hadn't seen in years. Deborah Malone, my old college mentor, my academic advisor during undergrad. Back when I still believed life had a structure, a ladder, a blueprint before aligned vibrations ever entered my vocabulary. Her message was simple. Zach, I saw your name listed as a reference in a legal complaint involving a woman named Victoria Chen. I hope you're doing okay. If you're willing, I'd love to catch up. I just sat there, staring. That woman had once written me the most heartfelt letter of recommendation I've ever received. She believed in me when I barely understood what I wanted. But I let that phase of life dissolve, grad school plans shelved, dreams deferred by life, by Caroline, by trying to be enough for someone who was never going to meet me halfway. I replied. The next day, we met at a coffee shop in Tempe. Neutral ground. She looked the same, older, sure, but warm. grounded, authentic. We sat for an hour, maybe two. She didn't judge. She just asked questions, listened, and then she said something that caught me completely off guard. You know, I always thought you had that rare combination, quiet integrity and analytical fire. You were the kind of student who made the people around you smarter. Just by being in the room? I laughed, awkwardly. Yeah, well, I've been living with someone who thought I was spiritually toxic for liking frozen pizza and spreadsheets. She smiled. Then maybe it's time to build something on your own terms. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed, because I'd been so consumed with cleaning up the past, exposing the lies, reclaiming space, surviving the fallout, that I hadn't thought much about the future. But now, with the noise gone, I could hear it again. That quiet voice, the one I hadn't trusted in years. The one that said you're allowed to want more. So I opened the notebook I hadn't touched in ages, the one buried in the back of my closet under an old hoodie and my original PS4 controller. Inside were half-finished business models, workshop ideas, course outlines, a dusty pitch deck from when I thought I might build a small consulting firm to help young analysts navigate burnout and upward mobility. The notes were messy, unpolished, but they were mine. And suddenly, I didn't feel behind anymore. I felt ready. That week, I reactivated my domain name, scheduled a meeting with Deborah to talk mentorship and startup funding options, sketched out a skeleton proposal for a free online resource hub for first-gen college grads in STEM fields' actual empowerment, built on skill, not smoke and mirrors, no vision boards, no goddess awakenings, just tools, structure, guidance. That was the irony of the whole experience. While Caroline and her squad were chasing illusions of freedom, they'd become completely dependent on jargon, on fantasy, on each other, but I didn't need incense to feel grounded. I needed clarity, purpose, ownership, and I had all three now, but there was still one last thread to tie up. A week after my coffee with Deborah, I got a message from a shared acquaintance. Caroline showed up at Victoria's old apartment last night. Screaming, banging on doors, police got called. She's officially hit rock bottom. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. I felt justice. Because it wasn't just about her betrayal anymore. It was about the culture she bought into. The one that told her growth meant abandoning responsibility. That real work was oppressive. That love meant worship, not reciprocity. And she wasn't alone. There are thousands of Carolines out there, smart, capable women being fed fantasies by predators like Victoria. But there are also thousands of people like me, people who give, who carry the weight, who stay quiet, who get told they're not enough because they don't play the social media game or speak in vague motivational riddles. This story, it wasn't about revenge. It was about returning to myself. The real win wasn't the eviction, or the legal takedown, or even the $400 I got back from selling the engagement ring. It was the moment I could look in the mirror and not feel like I had to apologize for being me. A man who's quiet, methodical, flawed but solid. A man who doesn't need to chase someone else's dream to feel worthy. I don't know where Caroline is now. Last I heard, she was working retail, couch surfing, occasionally posting passive-aggressive quotes about lessons learned from toxic men. But here's the truth. Sometimes, you are the storm, and the people who can't handle your stability will try to drown you in chaos just so they can feel powerful. Let them go. Because eventually, the waves calm, and you'll be left standing stronger, sharper, unshaken. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been gaslit into doubting your value, if you've ever been told you were too boring, too grounded, too practical, if you've ever had your life hijacked by someone chasing a fantasy with your credit card, let this be your reminder. You're not crazy. You're not controlling. You're not holding anyone back. You were the one holding everything together. And now it's your turn to build. Because the best revenge is no longer having to explain yourself. It's thriving, silently, powerfully, authentically. And trust me, they'll feel it. To all of you still watching, drop a comment below. What's the moment you finally chose peace over potential? And if this story hit home, smash that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, sometimes you don't need to take out the trash. You just need to stop letting it live rent-free in your house.